have much time this morning to address the issue of social marketing, although it's one of my favorite things. So I hope what it did was whet your appetite for it. I thought in the time that I have left now, we would talk about the 5 P's of social marketing. There's a solid 4 P's: product, price, place, and promotion. And then most every social marketer adds another one, starting with a P, just to maintain the alliteration. This schema shows the similarities between commercial marketing and social marketing. Commercial sellers will promote the benefits of a product. Social marketers promote the benefits of healthy behavior. Although often there is a product involved, think of condoms. Perhaps for you guys, the asthma plan is the product. Commercial sellers will make the place and the price convenient. Price is the cost to the target audience of making an exchange. In commercial marketing, price almost always has a financial component. That is, the exchange is you get a can of Coke and Coca-Cola gets your money. In health and other behavior change, price may have a financial component, but it's much more likely to be time, effort, lifestyle, or psychological costs. Price or costs then can be seen as barriers between the target audience and the action we want them to take. Sometimes those barriers can be easily reduced or eliminated, often by improving the place. Sometimes it's much harder. So let's talk for a second about place. In social marketing terms, this often equates to marketing or distribution channels. That is, how you make the product or service available to the consumer. In social marketing terms, it's sometimes more useful to define place as the situations in which the behavior does or can occur. Sometimes changing place characteristics is most easily done by changing policy or regulations. For example, you could implement a school board regulation that requires an asthma plan to be on file for every student who has asthma. Commercial sellers will engage in various promotions, especially advertising. Social marketers, who typically have very limited budgets, must be much more clever in communicating with their target audience. Personal selling is by far the most potent. And you can tell that because the final steps in any election is the troops going door to door, knocking on the door. The most effective message would come from the woman living next door to you: please vote for this candidate on this day. It's most important for you guys to remember that health professionals are the most powerful messengers for health messages. People really listen to you. Use that power. This slide shows the marketing mix, we call it. That is all the P's together: product, price, place, promotion, and the all-important competition. Because you don't get to work in a vacuum. You get to work against people who are working against you often. This is a nice diagram that shows the correspondence between commercial marketing and social marketing. And then, like I said, everybody's got an extra P that they add for alliteration. If nothing else, it reminds you to think expansively and creatively. In this scheme, publics are the target audiences. And as good social marketers, you begin by identifying your target audience, and you aim at them with precision. You never do general awareness campaigns. Partnerships remind you not to invent the wheel if somebody else has already done it. And again, to think expansively about building your team. Remember, belonging to a coalition doesn't mean that you all agree on everything. It just means that you all agree on the one thing that brings you together, and then you also agree not to focus on the things that would tear you apart. Ask everyone you can think of to join you, because the absolute worst that can happen is they say no. In tobacco control, we fought for years against the tobacco companies attempting to frame the issue as smoker versus non-smoker, which it really was not. Smokers, of course, are the saddest victims of tobacco companies. So we worked very hard to include them in every coalition that we had. Policy reminds you that structuring the environment can sometimes be much more efficient and powerful than working to change hearts and minds. Actually, if you change behavior, the hearts and minds will follow. And purse strings means to be mindful of who pays. So you're familiar with the steps by now, and if you had to put them all on a single slide, this would be it. Do your research, identify with great clarity your audience and the specific action you want them to take, identify the exchange by reducing the barriers and increasing the benefits, come up with your tactics or innovations, and constantly evaluate what you do so that you can get better at it. So let's just say a few quick words about the best messages, because as you know, you're going to develop your message not based on what you want to say, but based on your research that shows what your target audience needs to hear. This comes from very good advice from a very smart social marketer who began her career as a journalist. This is the CRAM acronym. Your message should precisely and concisely convey everything you want your audience to think and feel and do. So think about successful taglines. L'Oreal advertises itself as the most expensive brand of beauty products because I'm worth it. The reward is not that your hair's going to look better. The reward is your ego's going to be polished. Whether it's a slogan or a TV show or a giant inflatable condom, messages must always have the same four elements: the connection, reward, action, and memory. Connection is the entry point. It gets the audience's attention so they will notice your benefit. Is your message that no one needs to be hospitalized if asthma is managed well? Your reward is that immediate, tangible, personal goodie that people are after, not something that's deferred far into the future. The action is what you work hard to make done as easily as possible. And memory is what makes it stick. If connection is the entry point to the frame, memory is what puts the last side on that frame. And as you heard this morning, stories stick. Facts and figures fly right through people's heads, but stories change the world. The saddest thing about Diamante Driver's death in 2007 was that that little boy died. But the difference his death made in Maryland State's approach to oral health would be difficult to exaggerate. We always had the statistics. During Governor Ehrlich's administration, Maryland ranked near dead last in oral public health. That was the stuff that we knew. What kicked everybody into action was the needless death of that and the incredibly unjust death of that 12-year-old little boy. And the fact that an award-winning reporter for the Washington Post, Mary Otto, kept writing about it. You know, that boy who could have been saved with a $75 tooth extraction ended up having $250,000 worth of brain surgeries trying desperately to save him when it was too late. And we all watched that happen. That was when we kicked into gear. And we changed policy, and we changed Medicaid reimbursement, and now we reimburse physicians for putting fluoride varnishes on teeth. And I am very proud to tell you that 3 weeks ago, the Pew Center on the States came out with their annual report card, and Maryland today ranks #1 in oral health in the nation. And like I said, I'm sorry that little boy died, but the difference it made would be difficult to exaggerate. So let's talk just briefly about ways to cram. One-way communication is the traditional marketing approach. You create a message, you package it, and if you've done it right, the audience receives it and takes action in response. That's the slogan. It's short. Mark Twain is the one who said, "I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time." So you think haiku, even in as short an opportunity as a slogan, your message has to cram. Volkswagen's message, drivers wanted. that makes Volkswagen drivers feel a sense of connection and reward. Honda's message, the power of dreams. What's with that? That's too generic. If you can put your slogan next to another organization's name with no problem, then you have a problem. Oldsmobile, remember this one? Not your father's Oldsmobile. Now, what did that remind you of? That was more increased awareness of the disastrous brand problem Oldsmobiles were having. They were only selling cars to old people. All right, the two-way communication, cramming in the elevator. That's your 30-second pitch, and it's vital. It's vital because every time you meet a policymaker or a media gatekeeper or even a customer, to start that conversation, you got to get it out quickly. You've got to get it out in the time it takes to go from one floor to another on an elevator. And if you haven't, if you think your issue is too complicated for a 30-second pitch, you got to go back to the drawing board and work on it again. Because personal communication is so powerful. Remember, it's a two-way communication. It's not a monologue. And that, again, is why those door-to-door campaigns are so incredibly powerful coming down the home stretch of elections. Stories can illuminate one or of the elements or all four with color, texture, images, emotions, and feeling. Because good stories draw in your target audience and captures their interest. Good speeches start with stories that connect people and convey a message as a shared experience. It's too easy to lose track of your audience's point of view, so remind yourself. Every audience needs its own unique connection, reward, action, and memory. If you try to please everybody, you're going to end up pleasing nobody. So begin with a vivid color snapshot of your audience and insert yourself into it. 2, don't start by talking about yourself. Rather, establish a psychological connection. MAD's connection, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, was the sadness over a lost life. And every parent could relate to that. Make it memorable. The connection is the entry point for the benefit exchange, and memory is the other end of the frame. It's memorable if it's different, personal, specific, and contains a human element that's tied to your cause. And finally, practice cramming the message. Good stories, in addition to delivering the core message, should have at a minimum a compelling protagonist, a conflict to overcome, and a clear meaning at the end that helps us look forward. So figure out your core stories. I just wanted to end here by some of the most exciting social science in my lifetime is this stuff that they, call social networking. All right, I'm going to try this. Okay, I apologize. You got these slides. Open this up for yourself and treat yourself to this because it is astonishing. Here's what we have learned over the years. The incredible power of our influence on each other. This material came from the Framingham Heart and Health Study, which was begun in 1948 and has continued to today. They had an original 5,000 people in that study. They have been following them and their children and their children's children and all of their friends over all of these years. And what we have discovered is our incredible influence on each other. Now, don't ask me how Christakis and Fowler do the math. The math isn't my strong point, but here's what they showed. If I quit smoking, my spouse's chances of smoking go down by 67%. And my friend's chances of smoking go down by 35%. Those are huge numbers. If you made a pill that did that, you'd be very wealthy. But that's not all. My friend's chances of smoking go down significantly, and her friend's chances go down. The power of social networking goes out 3 nodes. This first connection is how we all stopped smoking together. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is we do the bad stuff together as well.